You are in a quiet upper room, high above the narrow street, where the city's late noises arrive softened by distance. The walls hold the day's warmth the way thick cloth holds heat, and even the air seems slower here, less disturbed by the passing of people. A single oil lamp waits on a low table, its flame steadying as you trim the wick and set it right, and you watch the little tongue of light gather itself into a calm, reliable shape. Somewhere below, one cartwheel turns over stone, then fades, and the warm lamplight becomes the main thing in the room, a small sun made for night work. On the tabletop, a wax tablet lies open beside a bronze stylus, and a small scatter of bronze tools catches the light in brief, curved glints. Their edges flash and then soften again, because nothing here holds brightness for long. The lamp is steady, but the world around it is full of gentle movement. You press the flat end of the stylus across the wax once, smoothing yesterday's faint grooves until the surface looks calm again, and the wax accepts the pressure with a quiet yielding, like soft clay that remembers being warm. The room smells of olive oil and warm clay, of old wood, and of a little dust that lives in beams and shelves, dust that never fully leaves, only shifts when a sleeve passes or a footstep stirs the floor. You take a moment to notice how the lamplight moves on plaster, slow, patient, never in a hurry. It slides over small imperfections in the wall where the plaster was troweled and left faintly uneven, and it gathers along the lip of a shallow bowl for water, turning the rim into a thin line of gold. The shadows shift across a rolled chart, across a shallow bowl for water, across the edge of a bronze arc marked with tiny notches you can feel with a fingertip, and even the notches seem to deepen and soften as the flame breathes. The night outside is cooler than the room, and it waits just beyond the doorway that leads to the roof, holding a different kind of air, one that tastes of stone and distance. You gather what you need in a small, practiced way. You do not rush, because nothing in the sky rewards haste, and nothing on the roof will vanish if you take a moment longer. The wax tablet in one hand, the stylus in the other, and the lamp lifted carefully so the oil does not tremble over the rim. You feel the lamp's warmth along your fingers and the faint vibration of the flame within its clay shelter. Bronze rests against your palm with a cool weight, and the metal's surface has the faint unevenness of age, smoothed by use, as if countless careful hands have taught it where to be held. The stairs up are narrow and familiar. They turn the way old stairs turn, not by perfect measure, but by the shapes the house has settled into. Underfoot, the boards creak once, then settle, and your steps become quieter as you find the stronger parts of the wood, the places that do not complain. The air changes as you climb, carrying less lamp smoke and more of the open night, stone that cooled after sunset, tile that remembers the day's heat, and the faint river scent that sometimes drifts through the city. The scent is not strong, only a trace that arrives and leaves, like a thought that crosses the mind without asking to stay. At the top, you pause with one hand on the stone of the doorway. The stone has its own texture, a cool firmness with small grains that catch lightly at the skin, and you feel the difference between indoor warmth and rooftop air. The parapet outside is only a little higher than your waist, warm in places where the sun stored itself, cool in the shadowed corners, and the contrast makes the stone feel alive in a quiet way. You set the lamp down in a sheltered spot, where the flame will not be disturbed by every small breath of wind, and you let your eyes adjust, letting the dark become legible without forcing it. The rooftop terrace opens to a wide view. Rooflines step away into darkness, and the city's higher temples and hilltops hold their outlines against the sky, not sharp, but clear enough to anchor your sense of space. The angles of tiles and the occasional ridge of a roof beam create a pattern below the stars. A second geometry made by human hands. Here and there, a distant lamp glows behind a window, but most of Rome is dim and resting, and the night above it feels close and vast at once, like a roof with no beams, a ceiling that never ends. You look up first, as you always do. The stars are clear and numerous, not scattered thinly but gathered in depth, some sharp and cold, some softer, like faint ash in the dark. The sky does not feel empty, it feels structured, as if it has its own careful order that continues whether anyone watches or not. Even when you do nothing, even when you stand with your hands still, the sky continues, turning so slowly that it seems motionless, yet always changing in ways that reward patience. You sit on a low stool near the parapet and place the wax tablet on your knee. The stool's wood is worn where legs have brushed it, and it sits steady on the roof tile with a quiet confidence. The stylus rests between your fingers, and you make a small mark, not words, only a line and a dot to hold a position you do not want to lose. You do it slowly, as though the wax itself prefers calm hands, and as though the mark will be clearer if it is made without tension. One bright point draws your attention, not fixed like the others. It has a steadier glow, and it sits where you remember it from earlier nights, but not exactly. You watch it without counting, without forcing certainty, letting it show its place in its own time. Your eyes soften around it, taking in the darker space that surrounds it, and you feel how the star's brightness is not only brightness, but a contrast against the depth behind it. Beside you, the bronze arc waits, simple in shape, honest in its purpose. It lies where you placed it, close enough to reach without looking down for long. You lift it, feel its weight, align it by sight rather than haste, and let the star settle into the narrow space you use for measuring. The metal cools your palm, and the notches at its edge are small enough that you find them by touch as much as sight. When you lower the tool again, you don't rush to record, you watch once more, allowing a second look to soften the first, allowing the night to confirm itself. You mark the wax with two shallow grooves, a quiet pair of signals that will make sense later. The grooves catch lamplight at their edges, becoming visible only when the tablet tilts, and you tilt it once, then return it to stillness. The sound of the stylus is almost nothing, more a sensation than a noise, and the rooftop stays still around you. Far below, a door closes somewhere, and then the city resumes its silence, the sound sinking into distance as if it has fallen into a well. After a while, you turn your gaze to a familiar pattern. A small cluster suggests a curve, and nearby a brighter star holds the shape together, like a clasp. You do not need to force the curve into anything, it is enough that it returns night after night, offering the mind a simple shape to rest on. People give these patterns names: bear, hunter, twins, not because the sky truly becomes those things, but because the mind likes a gentle handle for what is too large to hold all at once. In the dark, the simplest naming can be a comfort, not a claim, only a way of pointing. You let your eyes wander along the line of stars that many follow with their finger in the air. The path is easy enough to see, even when you are tired, a simple route across the dome of night. You don't recite or list, you only notice how the shapes return, night after night, with small changes that keep the watching from becoming dull. The changes are subtle, more felt than measured, like the way a familiar room looks different when the lamp is set in a new place. The lamp's light stays behind you, a warm island on stone. You feel its heat at your back when the wind pauses, and you feel its absence when a cool draft slips between you and the flame. When you turn your head, you see its glow reflected faintly on bronze, and the contrast between lamplight and starlight feels natural, like two kinds of attention. One belongs to the hand and the table, the other belongs to distance, and the roof becomes the meeting place between them. Later, you step back into the upper room with the lamp, because the wind has shifted slightly and you want the flame steadier. You carry the lamp close, shielding it with your body as you pass through the doorway, and the warm air of the room gathers around you again. Inside, the warmth returns around your shoulders, and the shift is immediate, as if the house has closed its hands over you. The ceiling beams are darker than the plaster between them, and the room holds the smell of oil and old paper, and the quieter smell of fabric that has been stored in a chest. On a shelf, rolled charts rest tied with cord. The cords have been handled often enough that they have softened, and the knots come apart without resistance. You choose one by its weight and the feel of its edge, not by anything written, and you unroll it partway across the table. The papyrus resists for a moment, then relaxes as it remembers being opened. Inked lines and dots appear, careful work made for eyes like yours, but you don't read them as text. You trace the curves with a fingertip, following the geometry rather than words, letting the map remind your memory where the sky's familiar divisions lie, letting your body remember what it has done so many nights before. You set the wax tablet beside the chart and compare the patterns in a simple way. The lamp's light makes the ink slightly glossy where it is thick, and dull where it is thin, and those small variations become part of how you recognize the drawing. Not with speech, not with explanation, but with quiet matching, this rise with that cluster, this angle with that bright point. Your mind does what it has learned to do, and it does it best when you do not press it. When you loosen your grip on certainty, the night supplies enough. A shallow bowl holds water for the night. Its clay is smooth where fingers have touched it many times, and the water inside reflects the lamp's flame as a trembling oval. You dip your fingers and touch the water to your brow, not as a ritual anyone would notice, only as a practical kindness in warm weather. The coolness is brief and real, and it clears the last trace of street dust from your skin. A few drops run toward your temple, and you wipe them away with a thumb that smells faintly of bronze. When you return to the roof, the city seems quieter than before. The last late voices have thinned, and the occasional footsteps are single and far apart, as if the streets have become longer in the dark. You hear one laugh carried up, softened into something almost gentle, and then it disappears. The sky feels even wider, because nothing below is insisting on attention. The space above the roof seems to expand as the city contracts into sleep. You lean your forearms on the stone parapet and let the roughness meet your skin. The stone is worn smooth in places where many hands have rested, and the edge has a faint warmth left in it, like a memory. Your sleeves brush dust from the surface, and you feel tiny grains shift under the fabric. You watch the stars without measuring for a while, allowing your eyes to soften. When you stop trying to fix each point precisely, the sky becomes more like a whole, a dark field with depth, and the bright points become part of a larger calm. In the distance, a watchman calls something you cannot quite catch, and then the sound dissolves. It arrives as a shape more than a sentence, a practiced call meant to move through streets and alleys, and it reaches you only as tone and distance. Somewhere a dog answers, and then even that ends, leaving the roof to the wind and the quiet. The night continues on its own, needing no witness, and that thought settles gently into the space behind your ribs, like a warm stone placed there and left. After a while, you lift a small bronze ring with a narrow sighting piece, simple, sturdy, made to help the eye. The ring's surface is cool, and the sighting edge has been smoothed by careful use until it does not bite the skin. You hold it up and align it on a bright star near the edge of a familiar pattern. The act is slow, almost like breathing: raise, align, pause, lower. Each step has its own quiet satisfaction, because each step is familiar and complete in itself. You mark the wax again. The grooves are shallow, because you don't need permanence, you need a trace. The tablet shifts slightly on your knee as you press, and you steady it with your thumb, feeling the grain of the wood frame under your nail. The wax accepts the stylus the way water accepts a hand, giving way, then holding the shape you made. When you lift the stylus, the groove gleams briefly in lamplight, then becomes almost invisible unless you look for it. You shift your gaze toward the band of sky where the wandering lights move, the line that many follow through the seasons. Even without naming it, you can feel it as a region, a route where changes are more likely. The stars there seem arranged differently, not because they are different in nature, but because your attention is trained to notice movement among them. You watch for one of the bright wanderers, not always easy to find, and when you do, you let it sit in your awareness like a warm pebble. It does not need interpretation to be interesting, it only needs time. The bronze tools beside the lamp catch a flicker and then return to darkness. Their surfaces are not polished like jewelry, they are work surfaces, with small scratches and softened edges. The scratches hold tiny shadows, and the softened edges hold the memory of hands that have passed over them. When you touch them, your fingertips pick up the coolness, and the coolness feels steady. The metal does not pretend to be warm, it simply is what it is, and that honesty is part of why you trust it. Later still, you go down one flight to a quieter corner of the house where the air is less open and more still. The stair here is even narrower, and the walls are closer, holding the air like a jar. A small niche holds household figures, simple shapes in shadow, set where people pass each day without ceremony. You pause there only long enough to set the lamp down, let its light touch the niche for a moment, and pour a drop of diluted wine into a small dish. The wine makes a soft sound as it meets the dish, and the smell is faintly sour and sweet, and then it is done. Nothing lingers but a trace of scent and the quiet feeling of having completed something small. You return upward, carrying only what you need. The lamp is steadier now, as if it too prefers the calmer air above. The stairs creak once, then fall silent, and the roof receives you again like a familiar shoreline. Above, the stars have shifted so slightly that only a patient watcher would notice. The shift is not dramatic, it is more like the slow drift of a shadow on a wall, seen only when you remember where it was before. You sit again, and the stool is a solid thing beneath you. The roof tile is cooler now, and the coolness rises slowly through the wood and into your legs. Your cloak settles around your shoulders, wool soft and a little rough at the edges, and the cloth holds a faint smell of smoke and sun from earlier days. The wind touches the back of your neck and then moves on, uninterested in staying. It comes and goes the way the mind's small thoughts come and go, touching briefly and then leaving room for silence. You look for the hunter, because the mind likes a large, simple figure when it is tired. The three bright points that suggest his belt are easy to find, and below them a faint haze sits like breath on glass. You do not force meaning, you let the shape exist, and you let it be enough to hold your attention without effort. The haze is not a thing you can hold with your hand, yet it feels present, a softness in the dark that makes the sky seem deeper. You make one more mark on the wax, then stop marking. The stylus rests against your fingers, and you allow your hand to relax its grip. You watch instead. The longer you look, the more the sky becomes less like scattered points and more like a surface with depth, a dome that turns with a slow certainty. The turning is too gentle to see directly, but you feel it in the way one star approaches the parapet while another climbs away from it, and in the way familiar patterns seem to lean, as if the night itself is shifting its weight. After a time, the lamp flame shifts, and you realize the wind is finding it more easily now. You hear it in the faint change of sound, a whisper around the lamp's clay, and you see it in the way the light briefly thins and then brightens. You shield it with your hand and move it a little closer to the doorway wall. The light becomes steadier, and the shadows on the stone parapet calm. The world looks more settled when the flame is settled, as if the lamp is teaching the eye patience. Inside the upper room again, you lay the tools out with care. The room feels warmer now by contrast, and the air tastes slightly of oil and smoke. Bronze against wood, wax tablet beside the chart, stylus placed where your fingers will find it without looking. The table surface is smooth in the center and rough at the edges, where years of use have left small ridges. When you rest your palm there, you feel those ridges as a map of time, a record written in wood rather than ink. You run your fingertip along a notched edge on the bronze arc. Each notch is a tiny boundary, an agreed division of space that makes the sky easier to handle. Your finger finds the notches without needing to see them clearly, the skin learns quickly what the eyes do not insist on. The instrument does not explain anything, it only helps you be consistent, night after night, and consistency is its own quiet comfort when the world is large. You take the wax tablet and, with the flat end of the stylus, soften one mark you made earlier. You do it with the same gentleness you would use to smooth a crease from cloth, not erasing in a hurry, just easing the sharpness until the groove becomes a suggestion rather than a cut. The wax warms slightly under pressure, and for a moment it looks glossy, catching the lamp's reflection like a tiny pool. Even in your notes, nothing needs to be harsh, and the act of softening feels like making room. When you go back up, the air is cooler. The change meets you at the doorway like a hand laid lightly across the face, and your lungs take in the rooftop air as something cleaner and thinner. The day's stored warmth has spent itself, and now the roof tile feels more like stone than sun. The city below has settled into a deeper quiet, and the rare sounds, one footstep, one distant cough, stand out and then vanish. Each sound is brief, isolated, and then swallowed again by the larger hush, as if the night refuses to be interrupted for long. You look up and find the curve of stars that seems to carry a slow heaviness, like something moving through deep water. The curve is familiar enough that your eyes settle into it without effort, and you feel the relief of recognition. Near it, a steadier point holds the sense of north in place, a quiet reference in a turning world. You do not need to name it, you only let it be where it is, and in letting it be, your own thoughts become steadier. You shift your position and rest your back against the parapet. The stone is firm and a little cold through your cloak, and the coldness spreads slowly, not unpleasant, simply present. Your breath becomes more noticeable in the cool air, and you feel the simple rise and fall of it, matching the slow pace of the night. Each inhale seems to gather the air from the roof and the sky, and each exhale seems to return it gently, without any need to push. After a while, you lift your gaze to the faint milky band that runs across the sky. It is not a cloud, it does not move like weather. It is a depth of small lights, too many to separate, and it makes the night feel layered. You watch it until your eyes stop trying to count, until the mind relaxes into acceptance, and the band becomes a soft, pale presence rather than a problem to be solved. The longer you look, the more it feels like a road made of light, stretching away into distance you cannot measure. The lamp behind you burns quietly, and its oil level has lowered by a small amount. You hear the faintest change in the flame, the way it sounds when it has less fuel to draw from, and you turn your head to check it without moving too quickly. You adjust the wick, careful not to spill, and the flame brightens for a moment before returning to its steady size. The brightening is brief, like a blink, and then the light settles again into its patient rhythm. Lamplight, like the sky, does not need to hurry, and the night seems to approve of steadiness. Later, you take up the bronze ring again and set it aside without using it. The ring is cool against your palm, and as you set it down you feel the simple relief of not needing to measure every moment. Tonight, the watching itself is enough. Not every night must produce a clean measure, some nights simply keep the habit of attention alive, like turning soil even when you do not plant. The thought arrives quietly and stays quietly, making room for the sky to be what it is without demanding results. You let your gaze drift down toward the city's edge where a darker line suggests the river. From this height it is mostly a presence, not a detail, but the air carries something of it, mud and water plants and the coolness of moving current. The river's smell comes and goes with the wind, and when it comes, it feels like a reminder that the city is built beside something older than stonework. Somewhere in that direction, water continues its own work through the night, slipping past docks and walls, and you feel its persistence even without seeing it. You return to the sky and find a bright star low toward the rooftops. It sits close to the uneven line of tiles and beams, as if the city is almost touching it. It will set behind the city before long, and you watch its slow approach to the parapet line. There is nothing urgent in its descent, it simply follows the pattern that has always been. The star's light stays steady even as it nears the horizon, and the steadiness feels like a lesson in how to move without strain. When it nears the stone edge, you mark the wax with a single, shallow line. You do not press hard. The mark is more of a gesture than a record, a small reassurance that you noticed what you saw. You only give your memory a soft place to land later. The wax holds the line quietly, and when you tilt the tablet, the line catches light and then disappears again. After some time, you step along the roof to a different corner, where the parapet gives you a slightly wider view between taller rooflines. Your sandals make a faint sound on tile, and then stop. The tiles here feel cooler, and your soles read the roof's slight unevenness, one tile higher, one lower, without needing to look down. Here the wind is a little stronger, and the air feels cleaner, as if it has traveled less through crowded streets. The wind lifts the edge of your cloak and then lets it fall again, and the cloth settles with a small, soft shift. You rest the palm of your hand on the parapet and feel the grit in the stone. The grit is fine, like sand pressed into the surface over time, and it catches lightly at your skin. A tiny chip presses into your skin, and you shift slightly, finding a smoother spot. This is what the roof is, not a perfect platform, but a lived surface, shaped by weather and use. It holds the marks of rain, sun, and countless small touches, and those marks make it feel honest. You look for the twins, because their shape is gentle and balanced, and the mind likes balance when it is weary. Two brighter points sit close enough to feel paired, and the lines that connect them are faint but present. You watch them without asking anything of them. You let the pairing exist, simple and calm, and you notice how the space between the two bright points feels like a small pause in the sky, a quiet interval that the eye enjoys. Far below, one last cart passes, its sound drawn out and hollow as it moves between buildings. The wheels' rumble becomes a slow wave, then breaks into silence. You are reminded, briefly, that the city keeps working even in darkness, only more quietly than during the day. The cart sound leaves behind a deeper hush, as if the night becomes more noticeable once the noise has passed. After a while, you go back inside, because the roof has cooled your hands. You feel it in your fingers first, the way the cold gathers at the tips and then creeps inward. In the upper room, you rub your palms together once and feel warmth return, not immediately, but gradually, as circulation wakes again. The lamp makes the bronze tools gleam again, and the room feels like a small, contained world inside the larger one. The walls keep out the wind, and the ceiling holds the smoke high where it thins and disappears. You unroll the chart a little more and follow a curved line with your fingertip. The ink is dry and matte, and the papyrus fibers catch on your skin with a faint roughness. The chart has the smell of plant fiber and old air, and when you lean close, you catch a hint of it. You do not read, you match, you compare, you let the drawn circles remind you of the sky's divisions without turning the night into a lesson. The geometry is enough, and your memory supplies the rest without needing to be forced into words. The stylus rests in your hand, and you add one more mark to the wax. The mark is small, placed with care, and then you pause, noticing how easily the hand wants to press harder than necessary. Then you pause, and with the flat end, smooth an edge that looks too sharp. Even your records can be softened. The smoothing makes a faint change in the wax's sheen, and you see the lamp's reflection blur slightly, like a star seen through thin haze. Later, you take a small bronze piece, an angled measure used for simple sighting, and hold it under the lamp. The metal reflects a thin strip of light along its edge, and you see the patina where time has darkened it. The bronze has a warm tone where it is thinnest, and a darker tone where it is thick, and the contrast is pleasing in a quiet way. Tools like these have been in hands like yours for generations, passed down, copied, improved, and kept in use because they do what they need to do. The thought arrives without pride, more as a sense of belonging to a long chain of careful attention. You set it down and listen. The house makes its own small sounds, wood settling, a faint shift somewhere below, the quiet movement of air through a window. The sounds are not signals of trouble, only signs that the house is a living structure, responding to temperature and time. Nothing dramatic, nothing demanding. The night inside the walls is as calm as the night above them, and in that calm you feel how little is required of you beyond simple presence. When you return to the roof, the sky seems to have deepened, as if it has grown more confident. The darkness looks richer, less gray, and the stars stand out with clearer edges. The stars are still bright, but the sense of movement is clearer now, a slow turning that you can almost feel in your shoulders. You sit again, and your body accepts the stillness. The roof tile beneath you has cooled further, and the coolness is steady rather than sharp, a quiet companion. You watch the brightest wanderer you can find, and you notice how its light is different, less sharp than a star, more steady, almost like a lamp seen from far away. Its glow seems thicker, as if it holds its own small halo in the air. You do not chase it across the sky with constant measuring. You simply keep it in view long enough to feel its place, to let the mind settle around it without insisting on conclusions. The wanderer does what it does with calm inevitability, and you let that be enough. Your wax tablet rests on your knee, but you do not touch it for a while. The smooth surface of the wax cools in the night air, and the wooden frame feels solid. Your hands rest on it lightly, as if your touch alone is a kind of keeping. You feel the grain of the wood under your fingertips, and you notice how the frame's corners are slightly rounded from use. Softened by time the way stone steps soften under feet. After some time, you shift your weight and stand, stretching in a slow, quiet way. The movement is unhurried, and you feel the stiffness ease from your back as you straighten. The cloak slides along your shoulders, and the cool air reaches places it had not reached while you sat. You look up again, and the act of looking feels like returning to a familiar doorway. The sky meets your gaze without resistance, open and steady. You lean on the parapet and look down into the street's darkness. The street lamps are few and far between, and most light comes from windows that have not yet gone dark. A faint glow outlines a corner of plaster, a patch of paving stone, a stair mouth leading into shadow. The street itself is mostly a dark channel, with the occasional pale line where stone catches light. You listen for movement and hear almost none, only the rare soft sound of someone passing in the distance, quickly swallowed by the buildings. You lift your gaze to the sky again, because that is where your work truly lives. The constellations are steady companions, not speaking, not changing their nature, only shifting as the hours pass. You watch a familiar pattern lean slowly toward the west, and you feel time passing without needing a clock. The sky is reliable in its own way, and reliability has a quiet comfort to it. It offers continuity when everything else in life changes by small increments, day by day. Later, the wind grows a little cooler, and you return inside for a moment to drink. The doorway frames the shift from open air to sheltered warmth, and the room's stillness meets you like a blanket laid lightly over the shoulders. The water in the bowl tastes faintly of clay, stored in a simple vessel. You sip slowly, and the coolness moves down your throat and settles. The water's simplicity feels right, as if anything more would be too much for this hour. You sit at the table and run your thumb along the edge of the wax tablet. The wood is worn smooth where it is held most often, and that smoothness is a kind of quiet history. You think of other hands doing the same motion, scribes, scholars, observers, leaving no trace except the smoothness they created. The thought is not heavy, it is light, almost comforting, because it suggests continuity without demanding anything from you. You pick up the stylus and, without making any new mark, press the flat end gently across the wax. The surface becomes even again, glossy in the lamplight. The lamp's reflection stretches and blurs across the wax, and for a moment it looks like a small star caught in a dark pool. The simple act feels like tidying a room, but for the mind. It clears away the urge to hold too much, and it leaves only a calm surface ready for whatever the next moment brings. When you go back up, the roof receives you in a deeper quiet. The city's late movement has thinned almost to nothing. The air feels cleaner now, less stirred by passing bodies, and the sounds that remain are mostly natural: wind, an occasional bird shifting in sleep, a distant splash that could be water or simply imagination. The wind moves over the roof tile with a soft, dry whisper, and then pauses, leaving the night almost perfectly still. You look for the lion, because his shape is bold but not harsh, a slow curve and a brighter chest. You find him with ease, and you rest your gaze there. The lion's presence is more about posture than detail, a quiet suggestion of strength that does not demand attention. The sky offers these simple anchors without asking you to earn them. They are simply there, patterns waiting to be recognized by any tired eye. After a while, you notice the lamp's flame has shortened. The oil is lower now, and the wick burns closer to the clay. The flame is still steady, but smaller, and the light it casts is softer, more intimate. You adjust it once more, careful and practiced. The light dims slightly, then steadies, and the shadows become softer. Edges blur, and the room below the sky becomes less sharply defined, which feels natural as the hour deepens. You sit and let the softer light match the softer hour. Your hands rest in your lap. And the wax tablet stays beside you. You feel the weight of your cloak as something gentle rather than heavy, and the coolness of the night as something steady rather than sharp. The stars do not need your marks to keep their places. They remain where they are, turning with their slow order, and your attention rests on them like a hand resting on stone. Later, you take up the bronze tools and bring them inside, one by one, because the metal grows colder on the roof and you prefer it not to gather damp. You carry each piece carefully, not because it is fragile, but because care has become part of how you move. Each piece is placed where it belongs. Bronze touches wood with a small, dull sound, and the table accepts it. The arrangement is simple and familiar, and in its simplicity it feels complete. In the upper room, you open a small pouch and take out a few grains of resin. The pouch's cloth is soft and slightly oily from being handled near the lamp, and the resin grains inside are hard and irregular, like tiny amber stones. You place them on a shallow dish near the lamp, close enough for warmth but not close enough to flare. The scent that rises is faint, sweet, and dry, and it changes the air without filling it. It is a small signal to the senses that the night has moved deeper, not in any dramatic way, only in the way a room changes when a single new note is added to the air. You sit and breathe that air for a while. The smoke is thin, and it curls upward, losing itself in the shadowed beams. It does not insist. It only reminds you that the world has layers: oil and flame, resin and air, plaster and night beyond the walls. The scent stays close to the lamp, then thins as it rises, and you watch the way it moves, slow and patient, like the skies turning made visible. When you return to the roof again, the stars feel even more numerous, as if your eyes have learned to see them better. The Milky band is clearer now. You let your gaze move along it slowly, like walking a quiet road without needing to know where it ends. The road does not lead to a destination you must reach, it simply exists, stretching across the dome of night with calm certainty. You notice, near the horizon, a faint paling in the darkness that might be nothing at all. Not dawn yet, only a subtle shift that makes you aware of time passing. The change is so slight it could be imagined, yet it persists enough to be felt. The night is not endless, and it does not pretend to be. It simply continues until it becomes something else, and the becoming is gradual, almost kind. You sit with that thought without holding it too tightly. The roof is steady beneath you. The parapet is steady beneath your hand. The sky turns with its slow certainty above you, and nothing needs to be remembered all at once. The thought is not instruction, only atmosphere, like the way the lamp's light rests on the wall without needing to shape itself into meaning. After a while, you return inside and look at your wax tablet by lamplight. The marks are simple: lines, dots, a few shallow grooves that stand for what you saw. In the warm light, the grooves look deeper than they did on the roof, because the lamp throws shadow into them. You do not try to turn them into conclusions now. You let them remain what they are, a quiet record. The wax does not demand interpretation, it only holds the trace, patiently. You take the flat end of the stylus and smooth a corner of wax where your hand brushed it. The smoothing is slow, and you feel the wax warm under pressure again, responding the way it always does. The surface becomes calm again, and the lamp reflects in it like a tiny, wavering star. The resemblance makes you smile, briefly, without changing the night's mood. The smile is small, more felt than shown, and it passes like a soft breeze through the mind. Later, you lie back on a low couch in the upper room, not to sleep yet, only to rest your spine for a moment. The couch's surface is firm beneath you, and the fabric has a faint texture under your shoulder, woven tight enough to feel steady. The ceiling beams are dark above you. The lamp's glow is smaller now, and the room's edges soften. The corners of the room retreat into shadow, and the center remains warm, like a small island of light floating in darkness. You listen to the house. A faint shift of fabric somewhere below, a quiet cough, then nothing. The sounds are not close enough to draw your attention into the lives of others, they are only reminders that the house contains more than one body, more than one rhythm. The city beyond the walls is almost entirely still, as if it is holding its breath between one day and the next. Even the distant street seems to have stopped producing sound, leaving only the faintest hum of air moving through spaces. After a while, you rise and go back to the roof one last time. You move carefully, not because you fear waking anyone, but because the hour itself seems to ask for gentleness. The air is cooler now, and the stone feels colder through your cloak. The cold meets you more firmly than before, a steady chill that tells you how much time has passed. Above, the stars continue, but some are fading near the horizon where the night is thinning. The fading is subtle, as if the sky is slowly loosening its grip on the smallest lights. You look for the brightest point in the east and find it, low and steady. It could be a wandering light, or simply a star that seems brighter as the sky changes. You watch it without deciding, allowing the uncertainty to stay gentle. The point holds its place for now, and that is enough. It does not need to be categorized to be watched. The lamp behind you is dimmer now, and its warmth is less. The flame has grown smaller again, and the light it casts is more amber, more subdued. You could bring it closer, but you leave it where it is, letting the night's natural darkness take more space. The sky does not need your lamp to be itself. As the lamp's influence shrinks, the stars feel even more present, their cool light taking over the roof with quiet authority. You rest both hands on the parapet and feel the stone's coldness seep slowly into your palms. The cold does not bite, it spreads gradually, like water seeping into cloth. Your breath shows itself in the cool air, a faint pale shape that appears and disappears. The movement is small and constant, like the turning of the sky. Each breath rises, lingers for a moment, then dissolves, leaving nothing behind but the next breath. After a while, you step back inside and set the lamp down on the table. The flame is low, and the oil is nearly spent. The lamp's clay body is warm to the touch, and you feel that warmth fade quickly once it is set down. You turn the wick down slightly, and the light becomes softer, more amber, as if the room is choosing quiet. The shadows deepen in the corners, and the center of the room becomes a gentle pool of dim warmth. You place the wax tablet where it will be in the morning, and you set the stylus beside it. The placement is careful, habitual, a small act of order that requires no thought. The bronze tools rest in their places, and the chart is rolled again, cord tied with a simple loop. The room looks less like a workshop now and more like a private space holding the last warmth of night. The table surface reflects only a faint suggestion of light, and the air feels settled. You sit for a time with your back against the wall, letting the plaster support you. The plaster is cool at first, then becomes neutral as your body warms it slightly. The air is warm near the lamp and cool near the window. The contrast is gentle, and your body finds a comfortable balance between them. The window's opening is dark, and the air that enters through it feels clean and thin, carrying the faint smell of stone that has been cooling for hours. Outside, the sky's darkest depth begins to lift, almost imperceptibly. The change is not a sudden brightening, it is a subtle thinning, as if the darkness is being diluted by something pale. The stars are still there, but the faintest ones retreat first, as if stepping back. The night does not end abruptly, it becomes thinner, softer, until it is something else. You notice how the brightest points remain longer, stubborn and clear, while the smallest lights surrender to the new gray. The lamp's flame leans and steadies, leans and steadies. It has time. The movement is small, like the twitch of a sleeping animal, and then it returns to stillness. The house has time. The wood and plaster do not rush, they hold their shapes calmly. The city has time, even when it is quiet and nearly still. Somewhere beyond these walls, a river continues to move, and the sky continues to turn, and nothing in that larger motion requires urgency from you. You remain seated, hands resting loosely, feeling the slow weight of your cloak, the solidness of the floor beneath you. The floorboards have cooled, and you feel the coolness through the soles of your feet, steady and grounding. The room's edges blur slightly as the light stays low. Your eyes no longer seek crispness, they accept softness. The sky beyond the window continues its turning, even as fewer stars remain visible. You sense the shift more than you see it now, the way the world changes when you stop asking it to prove itself. The last bright points hold on a little longer, then soften into the growing gray. They do not vanish as if extinguished, they simply become harder to separate from the lightening sky. The lamp's glow is now the smallest light, and even it seems content to be small. In the stillness, the simplest sensations become enough, the coolness of air at your face, the warmth of the cloak at your shoulders, the steady presence of the wall behind you. The night, having done its work, settles into quiet without needing a final word.